welcome. To the person that asked me the question about Revelation 6, about those men that were seeking death and then death fleeth from them, I put the answer in the comments on video 24. And believe it or not, it's going to come up right now with what we're talking about. It's just kind of neat that you asked this question, and it's basically the direction that the video is going. I didn't even know it was going this way, but once I thought about your answer and realized we already talked about a little bit of it from the video 17 of the series, asking from the Bible's own words, to the witches can they save the souls that come unto them? And that is heavily duty connected to your answer. So check the comments out on video 24 to see, and then you'll see how all of this blends in. And it's for those of you who are full believers of Jesus Christ as the true Son of God, you are in for some joyous confirmation about the mercy of Jesus, the reality of his perfection, and how able he really is to fulfill his mission. And it's just nothing short of another miracle. Okay, what you're looking at right now, though, is going to further talk about the Kundalini and the rising Kundalini serpent. Just real fast, let's recap what we looked at in Isaiah, just to show you that Isaiah is in no doubt fully intimate with the understanding of these illuminated ones, because the Kundalini itself is designed to achieve illumination. You can see, as I said, that Isaiah recognizes that there's even two types of these illuminated ones, and he divides it from the dragon and the sea, and then these ones that are connected to the piercing and even the crooked serpent. Now, these would be the individuals from the fallen sons of God, and to even man on the earth who is attempted to rise, specifically his fallen spirit energy. Now, that would be the serpent Kundalini. Now, before we begin any further, the chakras are 100% real. The pineal gland is 100% real. All of that is anatomically and even nowadays scientifically provable with the chakras. The energy pattern is there. All right. That is the temple that was created without hands. That's what Jesus Christ, the Spirit of truth throughout the Bible, declares, that God dwells in a temple that was made without hands. 7, if you are very familiar with the words of Jesus Christ, he describes and says, he even says, if it were not true, I would not say it unto you. But have you not heard that in my Father's house there are many mansions? Or in heaven, my Father has many mansions in heaven. These many mansions are reflective of the same temple understanding of the 7 chakras. As above, so too below. Jesus Christ dwells in a temple that's the human body. Jesus Christ is the creator of all of it, the entire energy understanding, everything of physiology, physics, energy exchange, transmutation of energy, don't matter. Jesus designed it. Absolutely, without a doubt, Jesus Christ has designed the very temple of God, which is the physiological temple of God, which is connected to so many things. It's connected to the spiritual evolution of man, but it's not connected to the spiritual evolution of the individual of man that rises his spirit consciousness from the first Edenic chakra to the 7th crown chakra in his lifetime. No, we do it collectively over many, many ages. This is the deception of the serpent, that he seeks to invade the temple And he says that he can bring man to this perfection quicker if you just achieve the knowledge of good and evil, which begins to relate back to this Kundalini and even relate back to this neezing that we saw in Job chapter 41, where a light doth shine that makes him illuminated. So at this point, realize the chakras are not bad. You even see reference to the Bible in many instances of the 7. And of course, the chakra in their main form are 7 in number. Now, there's different variables of understanding of this energy center / temple of God. But the serpent is the one who seeks to invade the temple. And as you know, the serpent is expecting to become a man, fulfill the number of a man, which is the carbon material number of 666. This is the abomination of desolation. This is the fullness of the spiritual understanding of the true abomination of desolation that this fallen prince will enter into, and that's a material body. They want you to believe that it's the Temple of Jerusalem. Well, the Temple of Jerusalem is not even anything to do with something sacred or holy, because God has already told you he dwells in a temple made not by hands. So all of these temples, all of these churches, all of these Masonic temples, all of these Catholic, all of these Christian, all of these temples everywhere you look have nothing to do with housing the Spirit of the Father. As Jesus said many times, he said, I reside within the house of my believers. You are the temple of God. Within, as I said, you put Jesus on the cross, which is the fullness at the top of the steeple of this temple, which would be your third eye. Jesus Christ becomes that spiritual sight for you now that this rebellion has blinded man and caused him to fulfill himself with only a material outlook on the world. Surely you do not think that our Father has given us these faculties of spirit and mindal understanding within our own physiology for us not to use. That's the deception of the devil, where in the very beginning, because they had charge over the certain spiritual affairs of this world before they rebelled, they used that to guide man into the direction that they wanted them to go, to control them, just like you see many people on YouTube trying to control people now. They're trying to control, or the serpent's design was to give only the knowledge to the blinded elites who he could control to get to use that knowledge to eventually release them from the seal by changing the peridium consciousness of the minds of the people in this world. And that's exactly what they've worked to do. So, chakras are not bad. That is the temple. But the serpent has used his impatience, the story of the prodigal son, as the serpent is himself. He is impatient. He wants the fullness of his inheritance now. Well, now he has tricked mankind with that very same temptation of the supposed perfection and divinity within the material form. As I said, it actually does never take place. Mankind will never achieve the divinity that he has been tricked into believing into in a material form. But through the collective evolution of mankind, as we live within the 2 commandments given by God, which is the kingdom equation, love your brother as yourself, love God with all your might. Collectively, if all of mankind followed this, there'd be no war. There'd be no gigantic prisons. There'd be none of this crazy stuff that we have now. We would be creating the kingdom of heaven on earth, because the very kingdom of heaven does not have any of the brothers up there that do not love each other. That's why the serpent had to be expelled from heaven, because he no longer was aligned within the perfection of the projection of what the story and the truth of the kingdom of heaven is all about. And that's about love your neighbor as yourself. That's what true paradise is all about. So the serpent now is using his knowledge of even the physiology of mankind, even the natural course of the collective evolution of mankind, to thwart that. He gives his occultic knowledge, the knowledge of the chakra, but at the same time, he seeks to be the spirit that invades that temple. And then he gets them to let him in. And they do. And they do. And this is exactly what Isaiah is talking about. Exactly. And that day the Lord with his sword, great and strong sword, shall punish Leviathan, the piercing serpent, even Leviathan, that crooked serpent, and he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. Incredible. If you notice here, he says that in that day, meaning our time, this is our time now, and everybody knows about the Illuminati. People are learning all about this Kundalini. Isaiah is foretelling the future. perfectly. Notice that this Lord is only going to punish the Leviathans, the piercing, crooked serpents. That's going to be these ancient mighty men who have been deceived themselves and have risen the Kundalini serpent. They've been deceived by the devil. The devil himself is a higher spirit being than these sons of God. These sons of God have been led astray. And as you see, the Lord is only going to punish those who are lukewarm. And the one that will actually be destroyed by the fullness of the vision of the Spirit of truth, because he knows that these high fallen ones connected with this dragon that's in the sea, because the dragon in the sea is not actually one entity. It's the representation of three entities. Just like on the dinar, you see it go to from Utu Shemesh, Marduk to Enki. These gods are representing themselves through a lineage of gods. So they represent the fullness of their ancestry in their symbolism. So the dragon that's in the sea is the representation of Lucifer, Satan, and the devil. But Lucifer and Satan are bound in a different dimensional place than the devil is, as he's sealed still on earth. Because the devil is sealed on earth, this devil can achieve the breaking of the seal and to enter into the material form to gain his dominion, just like Job chapter 38 says. So this dragon that's in the sea is the representation of three beings that have unified themselves as the unholy trinity: Lucifer, Satan, and the devil. They will be destroyed. That's who's actually thrown into the lake of fire, which is the fullness of the demise of their actual being. They're actually written out of the book of life. And those individuals will not repent. And you are going to see 100% confirmation for exactly what I just said out of the words of Jesus Christ. Absolutely. That the only ones that will be destroyed will be the son of perdition, and it is a representation of this dragon that's in the sea. Because you know, Enki himself is represented even as the dragon, but as I said, Enki further represents the authorities that are above him, just like Marduk symbolized with Enki goes right on down the line to Anu. Anu represents Lucifer. Incredible. You'll see what I said really manifest. And if you have been with this channel a little while, you guys know that I can produce that in not just a little half shoddy way where it connects. You're going to see the fullness of that connection, guys. So just stick around. Okay, now I want to show you how we're going to align modern symbolism with this technique of the Kundalini with exactly Isaiah's words from thousands of years ago. And remember, what we have is the description of the Leviathan. He's a piercing, crooked serpent. Do not forget that you saw Leviathan talked about in Job chapter 41. And in Job chapter 41, we saw the description of how this illumination was achieved by this sneezing, which is 100% telling you that the Leviathan, everything to do with it in biblical symbolism, is about the rising of the Kundalini spirit from the lesser reflection, and then the higher reflection is the actual serpent Kundalini master himself possessing a material body. It goes from micro to macro. So those who are illuminated by his spirit energy, and then his spirit energy personality possessing a body himself. That's what it's about. All right, now let's look at, it's going to be, this is as close as I can zoom in to get you guys to see all these words at once as I read it. Let me go ahead and read it. It's going to be from this book. This guy is dead now. Itzhak Bentov. And if I remember correctly, it was some shady circumstances. Get this book. Go get this book while you can. Okay? And don't try to get it on some Kindle or on your computer. When the power goes, you ain't going to have that stuff. You need to get your information together in written form. You need to have a collection of your notes and your ideas so that you're not dependent upon an incredible mass of books to remember things that you might need to remember when the time comes to help pull people from the shadow that's coming. Get this book, Stalking the Wild Pendulum, on the Mechanics of Consciousness. This guy was an incredibly gifted mind. even in my opinion, more gifted than Einstein. And he saw things in a spiritual, he saw the material in a spiritual way. That's the beauty of it. Anyway, we come back here. We're going to see the fulfillment of the symbolism of the piercing serpent. All about this illumination. Listen closely. The Kundalini is described in yoga literature is said to be an energy coiled up like a serpent at the base of the spine. When this energy is awakened, it enters the spine, rises up along it, and is seen or perceived as a luminous serpent. Remember in Job 41, by his neesings a light doth shine. Now Leviathan is a serpent. Now he's a luminous serpent, perceived as a luminous serpent by the person having the experience. Once it has risen, does that word sound familiar as it's connected with the Antichrist? Once it has risen into the head, the luminous rod hopefully pierces the top of the head. That's the crown chakra. That's the symbolism that they're going to use for the destruction of the United States, aka the destruction of commercial Babylon, which is symbolized as New York City give unto her double the Big Apple. Now you must know that the Edenic chakra is colored red. It's pictured as like a spherical, circular red energy disk, if you will, which symbolizes Eden, which further symbolizes this red apple that you see constantly symbolized. Not that it was an apple, but I told you that the apple is symbolism for the knowledge that was offered from its lesser to its highest manifestation of truth on this world. All right? So once it is risen into the top of the head, the luminous rod hopefully pierces the top of the head. This is where you look on the White House, the Capitol. As I told you, that represents symbolized Ephraim's head, and then Ephraim is hoping to achieve all of these blessings on the top of his head. Well, if you look at the statue, in other words, the lightning rod that's coming out of the top of the Capitol in the White House, it's of a goddess, and that goddess is known by many names. But what I find intriguing is that you can also find this goddess under the name of Columbia. And this Columbia is being symbolized as a virgin, but you can also symbolize this Columbia as a whore. You got to think of the serpent Kundalini rising into the womb, the vagina of this Kundalini, of this Columbia that's on the top of the White House. And when he does, this symbolizes Revelation 12, which is Israel, which is bringing forth this man-child. Just as you know that Israel is being led by Ephraim, who becomes the United States. Of course, within the United States symbolism would be the fullness of Genesis chapter 48 and 49, describing the blessings that come atop of Ephraim's head. Man, Spirit has let me really tell y'all guys tonight that Columbia is going to be the birthing from this spirit propaganda, occult science manipulation of the material world order to infuse his spirit, this knowledge of good and evil, into a physical being. And it even has 10 lightning rods upon the head and the shoulders of this statue on the top of the Capitol of the White House of Washington, D.C. These 10 lightning rods represent Northern Israel, which is 10 tribes. Just like you're going to see, so much, and I don't want to get you guys off track here, but there's a whole lot that, like I said, I can tell y'all, but I just can't get it all out. It's so much that, it's just so much. I'm sorry for talking fast, because it's just, I know that sometimes I lose the attention span of people early because I create such a strong foundation in preparation for what I'm going to tell you. But it's only because what I'm going to tell you is true and real, and the connections are there. Listen to this video again, everything that I just said. And if you guys have been following me for a while, unreal. I'm even amazed at what I just said. So once it has risen into the top of the head, the luminous rod hopefully pierces the top of the head. All right. We're going to talk about the destruction. That's the second cup. Okay, because remember this piercing here. All right. In that day, in that day. So we have a God that is in opposition to this being. So those of you who are thinking that this being is the actual father or the actual true wisdom bringer to the world, like the occult are trying to get you to believe, this tells you, not here in the Bible. That aligned with the truth of Jesus Christ, which is love and brotherhood, mercy and compassion. No, this being is not who we want. But you just pay attention, friends. So they're symbolizing this destruction that must take place to achieve their divinity, to achieve their crown, to achieve this birthing pain of the serpent through the capital of the top of their head. Now this is going to time up with the columns of Solomon's temple, Jachin and Boaz, which really represent beauty and the beast. Boaz symbolizes the serpent. Now, as I told you, the symbolism is so heavily layered that even the highest orders of these supposed learned men don't understand what this simple seer has been allowed to see through the truth of the network of the fractal of all things, which has been designed by the Creator with what you would know of as the Fibonacci series. This sequence of numbers that equates to pi is the very thing that allows me to realize the fractal of truth, the symmetry of truth in all things. Absolutely 100%. And it's something I myself have just realized what the significance is of this Fibonacci, which is to allow the continuation of all things, the consistency of the pattern of truth against the consistency of the pattern of the shadow of the lie. And they have become blinded in themselves, believing in this spiritual material, which they're trying to achieve into the intellectuality of the right-hand portion of the brain. And that's still material, guys. They need to come away from this material understanding of the supposed immortality of divinity, which is the lie of the serpent, which has tempted them with their own vainglorious ego to believe that committing such an atrocious act or being a part of this atrocious act is some sort of end or some sort of means that would justify their end. But in reality, the irony is that it is going to justify their end. They are actually bringing this iniquity upon the world. This iniquity is symbolized as the sword from Isaiah chapter 34, where it describes that his sword shall be bathed in blood. Well, he who kills with the sword shall be killed by the sword. The fullness of the manifestation of this is for false Israel to hear. The sword is their wrathful, angry, vengeful God of Isaiah chapter 34. As I said, their plan is going to backfire. The very sword itself is going to destroy them. And that's where you see the symbolism of those that have actually taken the mark of the beast, which they want you to believe, the occult does, that it's you that's taken the mark of the beast. And they're trying to symbolize that beast as Jesus Christ. But you don't understand that that's what they're trying to do. You're going to see that happen as the strong delusion develops. And then once these locusts come about, then they're going to fulfill that doctrine. This will be the torment that causes many people to lose their faith. That's the great falling away of the book of Peter and even 2 Thessalonians. This is where we run into Revelation chapter 6 that describes these men will seek death, but it shall flee from them. These are the men that are losing their faith. These are the men of the great falling away. By saying that death will flee for them, that no matter what, it doesn't matter even if they do lose their faith, Jesus Christ's power will redeem and ransom them from the grave. So they're going to even seek death, even by losing their faith and seeking the doctrine of these ones that come from the valley of the shadow of death. But Jesus knows that in the end, they will be redeemed by his promise of grace that he's already fulfilled for all of the deceivers, except for all of those that have been deceived, except for the very sons of perdition themselves, the true prodigal sons of Scripture, the true prodigal sons of heaven. So they need to commit this supposed sacrifice, which you would see encoded into the symbolism of the Capitol of the White House, which is what they hope that they're going to achieve, their remnant as white as snow. All the symbolism's there. All the symbolism's there. Ha! Man, my mouth just sometimes mixes up the words. And, but I'm happy I can tell it to you. Okay, so listen to more confirmation. This luminous rod. Remember in Ezekiel 19, it was describing Ishtar had strong rods to bear rule, but some of these rods would end up being destroyed and withered by that fire, well, that's the confirmation of what I just told you, that yes, this fire, this sword that they're going to bring upon is even going to backfire on them. The luminous rod hopefully pierces the top of the head. That is the rod-like energy beam. This is where we get the symbolism for the halos of the ancient Elohim in the past. And you're going to see these Elohim, the mighty men, the locust, these Danites, the wicked judges, fulfill themselves with these very same energy beams, illuminations atop their head. It says, the rod-like energy beam is seen as a projection, or seen as projecting through the skull, pointing upward. When this happens, the person is said to be illuminated. Eventually, such a person may become highly intuitive and develop some psychic powers, such as clairvoyance, clairaudience, or healing abilities. Healing, this is where they begin to connect Jesus Christ and his supposed powers had something to do with him rising this Kundalini. How blind they actually are. And you don't actually see none of them running around healing anybody, do you? No, because it says in the Bible, ye search the scriptures because in them ye think you have eternal life. And they're forgetting the very real truth, even the forest of truth that Jesus Christ is for a few simple fallen trees. This fallen tree of Israel, who has the torn branch of unbelief. These mighty oaks of ancient Bashan, which is the lands of the giants, which now comes down as the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and then their bastard tree of life of the Jewish shadow magic Kabbalah. Those are the trees that this thing is trying to tell you about when it says, don't miss the forest for the trees. And then the Spirit will expand and say, don't miss the forest of truth for these simple fallen trees of deception. And that's this Fibonacci series of the fractality of the truth that will always outweigh the fractality of the lie. Whew. Incredible. Eventually, such a person may become highly intuitive. That's the illumination that they're all hoping to achieve. That's the supposed divinity within the material body. Whether he develops these or not depends on many factors. As I told you, mostly that's DNA. And it goes back to the sons of God themselves before they rebelled. You can find this in Job chapter 38. These sons of God, before they rebelled, they were seen as Elohim. They were seen as mighty. They had the halos going off their head. You know why? Because they were using the chakra. You know, the spirit that they had that was within the house of the temple of the chakra was the Holy Spirit. That's exactly right. There was both good. They were all good at that time. That once the rebellion took place, this is where mankind was so easily confused. This is where the confusion is of the symbolism for the lions, which is being used for the fallen and for the good. Because at one time they were all lions, meaning this mighty of this primitive jungle-like condition that the earth had. But they were the mighty of the spirit of truth, not the mighty of the spirit of wrath. So once they had rebelled, then they were tempted by this iniquitous plan, which is symbolized with Ishtar, which is now them taking unto themselves the daughters of man, which is they are being deceived by the serpent to achieve this elite race that the serpent can use and even them can use to loose the seal that they know is about to take place on them. They know that when they take this oath, just as you see in the book of Enoch, that something is about to go down bad for them. So the serpent knows this too, and he knows that this seal will take place because he understands the geometry of the physiology of the energy management on this planet, which is the star tetrahedron, circumscribed tetrahedral geometry. And then when you get circumscribed, wow, we start tying up into major symbolism with ancient Jewish tradition, but we begin to understand the fullness of this understanding as it applies to the true reality of our world. If I'm talking to people that I think have been with me a while, I'm not talking to people that have just turned on this channel right now. I've been giving a highly advanced spiritual revelation to as many that would listen for almost 2 years now. For those of you that might not know what I'm talking about or how I know what I'm even talking about, you need to view the channel in its entirety. But unfortunately I have, or fortunately, depends on how you see it, I've got over 1,000 videos that are not of images from other computer screens or other people's videos. It's me sitting here talking. There's not a person on YouTube that has anything like that can produce the consistency of truth that I'm continually trying to humbly give you guys. Okay? So whether he develops these or not depends on many factors. However, sometimes illumination may be late in coming. Well, that's right. As I told you, these chakras will eventually, within the collective of humanity, as long as he stays the path, the straight and narrow, he will achieve this higher material sight. But for us now, because of the rebellion of mankind, that's way into the future. We have to all collectively begin to change our ways and start living more upright. And then throughout the successive ages ahead, our children's children will have actually rose the spirit inner understanding of God within their lives. And they will have a much more stronger spiritual awareness. And then in turn, they will have a stronger civilization built upon the true spiritual foundation of brotherhood and love for God. But that's in the ages to come because of what we suffer here. So this is why this kingdom is not going to fulfill itself on earth in 1,000 years. It's an impossibility because the earth is so backward and blinded that it's going to take thousands of years itself to undo the change that these beings have done. This is why we're elected unto the heavenly estate and we go to the spiritual abode because of the calamities that they cause here. But of course, there is going to be an absolute population that stays on this world after these fallen ones have been cleared out who think they're receiving their golden age. And then the true new beginning that will be ushered in by the true bright and morning star of Jesus Christ will begin. And then mankind will have all of his tears wiped away and we can begin to know the truth, because quite possibly people who know the truth of what I'm talking about will be on this world to help guide those into the direction of the new civilization, towards that of what we were going to have before the rebellion in the early days of Genesis, when the original sons of God were on this earth. Now there's a new generation of sons of God that are being created on this earth that will not rebel, that have had the experiences of all of these past ages and know now the right direction to go. Praise Jesus Christ. Praise Jesus Christ. However, sometimes illumination may be late in coming, and all the person may be able to show for his efforts is a king-size headache. Can you believe that? Fractal complete. The king-size headache, that the only thing that they're going to be able to show for their efforts is Apollyon, their king. And he is going to be nothing but a king-size headache, and it's going to be the only thing they show because they're not going to be illuminated. Those of you who are in the occult, are you hearing this? You hearing this? Don't make the mistake of the ancient Pharisees. And when you see that when somebody knows the truth and can deliver the fullness thereof, that you just reject it and look for some sort of darkness and shadow to explain the reason why that I can do this. I have no devils. I only have one thing, and that's my sincere want and will to do the will of God, to love my brothers and to love God with all my might. And that means proclaiming the perfection of Jesus on the housetops. And I ain't going to stop. Which may last for years. For years? So this headache may just last for years. And then we'll be able to get to the real light of this world. I'll be back.